Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about rebranding in the cannabis industry. Massroots is supposed to be the Facebook of cannabis. They're kind of technically out of business, although not officially out of business. We're going to dive into how to rebrand in response to the cannabis industry's changing business climate. On the line with us is Dan Kimmis with Good CBD Products.
Changing business climate? What do you mean? Come on.
Constantly, right? And we drove out to Denver and we went to Massroots headquarters for the Cannabis Tech event. Now, this was, I think, the fall of 2015, if I'm not mistaken. This is a while ago. And Isaac had a whole team there at Massroots, and now it's just him. He's publicly traded, although it's a third of a penny. That's 0.003. So he's not really, he is publicly traded, but he only has $1,600 cash on hand. 3 investors gave this guy $750,000 during the spring, and it's gone. I didn't even know Massroots was still in business. I thought they were gone like a year ago, but maybe it took a little bit too long to try and rebrand. Apparently, he's going to try and come out with some new thing that's going to bring in waves of people to sign up, being specifically a new program released later this month to be a defining moment. Optimistic about the company's future, although we have no idea what that is. So fingers crossed.
Right.
It's not really going to work out.
Yeah, I don't like to heap dirt. I'll just say that swoon, right? That up and down is a classic example. And a lot of times part of the reason you need to rebrand is you've got a legacy behind you that you can't clean up. Mm-hmm. It's hard, right? You've got old people you promise things to, staff's gone. It's all changed. A lot of times the answer is just pick up the phone, Chronic.
Yeah, whatever reward program is that he thinks is going to be the defining moment, there's a lot of rec shops, producers, and processors that aren't going to probably entertain this idea because it goes against state laws of trying to give incentives and discounts and everything else. And not only that, but really Massroots doesn't have any kind of exposure. So I can't really imagine that somebody would want to even deal with that. There's probably better to work through Headset, Leafly, something else, and get them, people who actually have individuals going to their website, unlike Massroots, who's not even online. They're going to be down for the next couple of days.
Yeah. And then let's, from the perspective of rebranding, like we've seen a successful rebrand, right? Where somebody as present as OMD becomes Wick and Mortar and takes it to the next level, right? So it can be done. You can rebrand and be awesome and actually win from a rebrand at the right time. You just got to be smart like Mirsky.
Yeah, All On Marijuana Design was a cannabis branding agency. They had a pot leaf. They had the name marijuana. That was originally for SEO. Search engine optimization was important early on, and now that he's developed and has a brand and a name for himself, it was logical to kind of go outside of the really kind of corny mashup. There's a lot of people who put through, 2 names together, Canna something, whatever. And it's really old. It's very boring from a marketing, advertising standpoint, graphic design even. And so you don't even have to have Canna, marijuana, anything. You can just be called something normal, Google, right? And hopefully cannabis companies are picking up on that and not needing to add the cannabis leaf and green and Canna to their brand.
I got 2 of those I work with daily right now. Can of this, can of that, right? And it just makes me howl because I know there was a lot of investment in coming up with the names. There's a lot of, attachment and association and all of those things. And hey, we're on the cusp of 2020. Needing Canna in your name, it's so passé. And yet, let's face it, this is the other thing about a rebrand. Hey, it ain't cheap. Okay, by the time you get done, just in cycles, picking the name, working on the design, all the stuff, it ain't cheap. And there you go, right? So when you pick that name, think to the future.
Right. And that's with your business structure as well. A lot of people would just open up an LLC, not thinking about the future investment opportunities, whereas an investor is going to want a C Corp. S Corp is better, but C Corp is what the investors want. And so if you aren't structured right, that's 10 grand right out the window that some attorney is going to take just to change it from an LLC to something more appropriate. Yeah, so you definitely kind of want to take a look before you do anything, save some money.
So I guess what you're saying then is if you do it right, a rebrand isn't maybe necessary. But the fact is, if you find yourself in that space, just a couple of check boxes, expensive, do it right the second time, and get help.
Right. If you're going to pivot in order to stay relevant, some name changes are appropriate. This article from Marijuana Business Daily says that there's several marijuana businesses rebranding themselves via name changes and other steps to try and reflect the companies that they've become. So whether the decision revolves around an initial public offering or the acquisition of multiple dispensaries, many companies are working towards creating a unified professional brand. And the president, chief creative officer of marketing firm Lindsay Stone and Briggs, they had said that there's potential reasons for marijuana firms rebranding, such as launching a new or different service. The competitive landscape in the industry has shifted, and they want to brand to reflect those changes. And then they want to stress the growing professionalism surrounding the cannabis industry.
That's the big one. It's changed so much. Again, 5 years ago, it made sense to have a leaf stuck to your thing. Today, it doesn't.
Yeah, a lot of people are actually going towards trying to grab board of directors from uh, Fortune 500 companies to be professional. You can't just slap together somebody else's product, throw your name on a white label, and then try to go to the market. There's so many companies I know of that have a letter of intent and then utilize some white label product, and they think that an investor is going to make them go public. Like, you don't have anything. You're basically a generic brand utilizing somebody else's manufacturing without any IP whatsoever, and then you think you're going to go public. It's a very immature industry, and they need a lot more professionalism, especially if you're going to go public. And so with a lot of people trying to hit the Canadian marketplace to get that capital, there's a lot more constraints, a lot more criteria now than there were just even a year ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do see a point of having just have a product. Go to somebody who has a product, get it, put your label on it. And if you have a giant email list and you're already doing strong e-commerce, that validates. But the whole, we're going to develop a portfolio out of everybody else's products, put what we think is a good brand on it, and then convince an investor that we're a going concern. It doesn't work like that. It just, don't do that.
If you're going to create a national brand too, it can't be just something like California, Cushy, whatever. It needs to be kind of an international name. It needs to be reflective across the entire category, right? So thinking about just another commodity, just another company, how you're going to create that national brand. And as a matter of fact, one national brand that came out really early is Charlotte's Web, and they actually finally got a letter from the FDA. So yesterday, Charlotte's Web, which is in Rite Aid, CVS, Walgreens, Bartell's, and whatever other neighborhood drug store you have, they got a letter from the FDA about making claims, and yet they're not off the shelf. There's not even a warning on there. I haven't seen a rebuttal from Charlotte's Web. And so when you do create a national brand, you're going to be a target. Smaller companies can get away with it, even though we saw those 10 companies in California that I've never heard of any of them. They got FDA letters about claims. But yeah, creating a brand right now, national brand, is that first mover advantage that you should be working on. Whether you're a retail shop looking at to be a multi-state operator, or anything else, you need to expand and get out of your state and find licensing opportunities. Since you can't do a franchise, since that's federal, look for other opportunities. There's a lot of ways to get out and expand. And if you don't, probably going to be taken over or be forced to merge with somebody else to stay alive.
When we talk to people in the field, the recurrent message is, gosh, one of these days there's going to be a big brand. What's that big brand, right? And so I would just echo what you said. Being that big brand, it's going to be expensive, but whoever is that big brand, my gosh, right? Because the market's screaming for it, a trusted brand.
Here's an interesting idea is to convey a happy image. So Chicago-based Cresco Labs, they own 31 retail licenses in 11 states and 21 operating dispensaries, all acquired through mergers and acquisitions. So that consolidation is definitely happening. But the point of this is that they're rebranding all the dispensaries as Sunnyside. So it's intended, the name
There
is
you go.
intended to convey happiness.
Yep, there you go. When I walk through a store door and I'm talking to somebody, one of my first measures is, do I feel welcome? And, permeating that through language, all of the different tricks. Yeah, I work at Sunnyside, right? There you go.
I'm not sure if that's going to work on the public markets. Really, it's all about cash flow, right? So you can have this creative or name that invokes a feeling or emotion without really drawing FDA criticism. You can't make claims, and so regardless of what the name is, it still needs to generate some revenue, right? If you're going to go public, that's really all that matters right now. Whereas last year it was about speculation. And so we're going to kind of dive into what is the difference between speculation and actual revenue. So you have to stay tuned and find out what that's all about as we kind of talk about the capital markets and the shift into more of a consolidated marketplace from this speculative one that we've seen so far.
Getting harder, Chronic, every day. That's the thing. If you're not selling, if you're not actually making money, then you better look around, because your brothers are, your sisters are. Okay, so get on the winning, get the winning play, or don't.
Right. So we're going to cover this article later, but it talks about chasing markets in the purest form of speculation. It's simply a bet on pricing going higher rather than determining if the price is being paid for those assets or selling at a discount to fair value. So when we look at this cannabis space from that lens of, is it speculation or is it an investment? Is there value, or are you just looking at it because it's cannabis and it's supposed to go up? So there's a huge difference between investing and speculation. We'll cover that on the Talking Hedge a little bit later. But with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. By the way, if you enjoy the content, please show your support with the cushy gesture of $4.20 a month on the Talking Hedges Patreon page. This will kind of help you spread the word. I've been asked to speak all over the world, from Toronto and Colombia, Spain, Miami, all over, Tokyo. But your support's important to me. I haven't monetized the podcast. I want to be as authentic and transparent as possible. I want to avoid conflicts of interest or even the perception of paid opinions. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or pay me on the Talking Hedges Patreon page, or don't, and I'm out.